I doing? Let's take a look. Let's see, load, tool, streaming. We want to continue with the medieval zombie. Mario World. Prehistoric creatures I still needed to do. Or do we just want to pick something and get it done real quick? I guess we'll start here. Zombies. Alrighty. Let's see, I kept gray. Am I all set up? Got Wacom. I got this. Hey Luke, thanks for showing up. This is going to be a shorter one, I think. But we can get some stuff done. Maybe. Maybe. Ooh, I don't know. Let's see, subtools. So we got zombie 1. Where did I leave off? So this is just a muscle zombie. This is from the Ryan King's line. If you hit the comma key, let's see, brush. No, not brush. Tool. And there is a Ryan King's line anatomy sculpt in here, so we can use that as kind of a basis for our skeleton and muscles. And then we got the Nick Z humanoid here that we can use as well. And we can pose all of these out at the same time or merge versions of these together. This one has skeleton and muscles. This one's just a skeleton. This one's just the body. And if we wanted to, we can duplicate this body off and then duplicate the skeleton off. And then if we merge the body with the skeleton, oh, you know what? The skeleton was actually already merged within his body. So let's go ahead and say, let's go into auto groups here. I'm going to hold down Control Shift. And this is the skeleton that's not moved out into place. So I'll go ahead and split this off. I forgot that I guess we don't need that one. We already had a skeleton moved in to his body proportions and moved his arms and legs out to match him. So as I pose him, I will also pose the skeleton, which is going to be hard to see. I guess I can just, we'll do Control Shift A, invert that, and now you can see the skeletons inside the body. Whew. Everybody, thanks for showing up. Cool. I don't really have, John asked, I had a Boolean question I had trouble with, didn't want to interrupt your workflow. I don't really have a workflow this morning. This morning is going to be a shorter one, so if you got something for me to talk about, I will gladly, I'm not prepared, as is tradition on the PavMike workshop. One day I will have enough time to sit down and actually plan stuff to do on this channel, but that day is not today. Cool. Best way to take a hard surface live Boolean model and Zbrush retopologize properly to a low subdivision level to get rid of the messy live Boolean, the mess that live Boolean makes, maintaining the hard edges. Yeah, let me see. We can do like kind of a sci-fi thing. Well, the thing is, the more complex your shape gets, let's start with a plane. The crazier your result may get. Let's say we could take a plane, make polymesh 3D, turn off smooth, subdivide, SMT, and then divide this up. And then we want to go through here. Let's turn on X symmetry, and we'll go ahead and mask pin. And what was mask lasso default? That was weird. So we can go ahead and we'll make something techie here that we can Boolean out. So let's say I've got this piece here and I want to have it be like a connecting piece for something. I'm gonna hit Control W, Control Shift, isolate this one, delete lower, and then delete hidden. And then actually, if I wanted to smooth those edges out before I go ahead and cut this out, what I can do is I can delete lower, and then under geometry edge loop, I can do edge loop mask border, and that'll go ahead and smooth this out. That way I don't have to do the delete hidden and then go up to my macros and run that polish polygroup border or manually mask my border and stuff like that. So we've got a smoother result here. I'm going to go in here to Zremesher. We'll say half, adaptive size down to 0. And I'm just going to knock this in half. We have X symmetry turned on, so it'll be symmetrical as we knock this in half. and half, and half, and half. And then if I want to start helping ZRemesher maintain some hard edges, what I can do is go in here. I'm using Move Accu. That's the, of course, man, I need to save my config here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my brush menu over here. I'm going to go through geometry and then close up all these menus that I don't need, and also probably in Subtool as well. There we go. So I have both of these open. I'm going to go to Preferences, Config, Store Config, and that way, I must have stored config when I was doing something weird. So we have all this stuff in here, and I'm using the Move brush with AccuCurve turned on, so I can kind of pull out to corner points like this. And I don't have to straighten these lines exactly. ZRemesher will take care of a lot of that for me, but I do need to pull out to corners just to let ZRemesher know, hey, I want this to be a generally straight line, and I want this to pull to a corner. So when I ZRemesh half again, it'll go ahead and build in these straights for me. And we can go ahead, we can actually use the clip brush here if we want to like just put a cleaner curve on that. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line. If you don't want, you can curve it a little bit. And then again, Move Accu, pull these out to corners. So this up here is kind of ugly. I'm going to go ahead and attach a cylinder to that. Let's see if we do half. Yeah, that'll work. Nice and simple. And then up here, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this. And I'm going to grab my clip curve, and we'll just go ahead and clip this back. So now we have a, I can bridge those to make that a smooth curve. In fact, and also I can get rid of any extraneous information that I don't need. So I'm going to insert single edge loop, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of, I can get rid of every single other one of these lines here to kind of simplify that. These in here I don't need. And you know what? We don't need that one either. So that just kind of simplifies the overall shape, gives me fewer points. So when I go to make this a hard surface shape, it's easier. So now I'm going to go through here, QMesh, polygroup all, and I'm going to pull this out. And we'll put one right down the middle, insert multiple edge loops down the middle, and then we'll go ahead and do a bridge, two polys, or connected polys, circle, curvature 100, resolution 8, aligned to normal, triangle sides. There we go. Hit Control W, and then we'll just do a group by normals. So now we have normals all along here. If you want this middle piece to be one group, just go into Z Modeler and do polygroup polyloop. There we go. So we've got this hard surface-ish shape. And now if we go in here and we do like, we can do a crease polygroup, then turn on dynamic. That's under geometry, dynamic, and you hit D and Shift D to toggle that on and off. Yes, and that's the result you'll get if you go through here and you do like a crease under your crease menu. That'll go ahead and crease those edges based on angle threshold, and then you can go in here and crease edge, hold down Alt, and then you can pick and choose which edges you want to maintain as hard edges or soft edges. So you know what, I'm just going to make all these soft. So this is the result I have, and of course at this point you can go through here and you can punch through any holes you want to with QMesh. So we'll do QMesh, polygroup all, pull this through, and then just run another crease polygroup. So box modeling, you know, and using ZRemesher to kind of get your base shapes. Now, if we wanted to use ZRemesher for some of this, and you can put in a lot of cool stuff just with, if you've watched Joseph Durust's drone video, you can go through here and you can do a lot of interesting stuff. If you hold down Control Shift and isolate just this one, and we do Shift D, you can just, like, you know, slice through here. In fact, if you want to, you can slice through there, hold down spacebar, do brush radius, and now you can actually slice through here with a brush radius. So you can put in, for example, little reinforced metal bits here. So if you want to like put one, I mean, I didn't leave a whole lot of room for it, unfortunately, because I wasn't planning to do this, but just for demonstration purposes real quick, let's go ahead and do a quick mirror and weld. And now we can do a QMesh all polygons, pull this back, go to deformation, can't reach it, display properties, not deformation, display properties flip, and now we can like, guess we can do QMesh. We'll do polygroup all just to get these side ones out. And now we can go through here and we can do QMesh polygroup all, and we can like push these ones back or get rid of these ones. So again, I didn't really plan for this, but you can use this to kind of put in like a reinforced metal look if you want to. And then of course when you hit D, you're probably going to want to still do a crease polygroup or whatever. Also crease level of like 2, smooth subdiv of 3. And you can come up with pretty simple, easy ways to kind of do that reinforced metal look. But let's go ahead and skip all that for now, because we're going to use Booleans for that instead to get back to the original question. So undo, undo, there we go. So we've got this original shape here. Now if we wanted to ZRemesh this is already pretty clean because we built it from a ZRemeshed mesh, but let's say we go QMesh polygroup all, and we pull this out, and then I'm going to do QMesh polygroup all here, and then we'll pull this forward, and then I'm going to do QMesh polygroup island because I just want this middle one here. And you know what? Let's do an insert single edge loop here, and we'll push this in with QMesh, and I'm going to do a line full step. So when I pull this back, it just snaps back in there. So now I've got this type of result here, and we can use Booleans to give us, and Booleans isn't going to make this any more or less difficult to ZRemesh. It'll just add, I mean, yeah, I guess it'll make it a little bit more difficult. So Boolean, let's go ahead and go in here, and we'll do like a cylinder 16, I guess. So we'll go ahead and split hidden, or split mask points, and then Shift D to turn off dynamic subdivisions. And on this one, let's go ahead and just put a crease tolerance on there, hit D, and now when we push these through, like so, it's not going to do anything. But if I move this below and I turn this to subtractive and I turn on my live Boolean, which I have assigned to Alt R, that'll go ahead and, you know what? Let's do my usual song and dance here. Come on. If you want to know more about this in particular, am I even getting any internet? Okay. You know, my wife is in the cardio room now, probably watching something off the Fire TV. So she's downloading, streaming, and I'm uploading, streaming. Am I even still on? Okay. Yeah, my internet's hurting. I'm just going to take you to my playlist link here, and you guys can find Intro to ZBrush 4R8, What's New, and that'll take you through more detailed explanations of this from my YouTube channel here. So ZBrush 4R8, What's New, there's 61 videos on the new ZBrush 4R8 functionality. No, I haven't gotten to, let's turn on local symmetry, so we'll just scale on this local axis and it won't go towards the middle, and we can just put this up through here, and we're going to do like a little frog head. So if we turn off polyframe, you're going to see this is the result we get. We can of course control drag these off to make copies. You can modify this one on the fly. So if we turn on polyframe and we go in here and we do like insert single edge loop, like say here, and then we do polygroup poly loop, and then we do QMesh. Actually, let's do 2 lines. Let's do insert. Actually, let's bevel this one. We'll bevel edge loop complete. And now we'll do QMesh polygroup island, and then hold down shift and pull this out, and then we'll hit D again, and then we'll do a crease. Well, if I show you this, if I start pushing this back, you're going to see it start slowly widening out. If I go ahead and do a crease PG, and I go into solo mode here, you're going to see what I'm doing is just giving that a solid or a more defined edge there. So now when I push this in, it'll go ahead and add a bevel. Do that one here, and then we can control drag this out, and let's put that there for the nostrils. And what else can we do with this thing? Any number of things. Let's take this one here. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and split mask points, and I'm going to undo this one just so we're back to the original. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and take these two, parts here. Hold down Alt to tag them, and then we're just going to do QMesh, Polygroup Island. We're just going to pull those out and then run a crease on that. And then I'm going to mask these. Hold down Alt, position these, and then scale these in here. So now, also, let's do a crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3. We get that kind of shape, and then on this original one here, we'll hit D. If it'll let us, let's see, delete hidden, dynamics on, there we go. So we've got a hard surface shape. Everybody caught up? Also, am I still up? Cool. Yeah, Ash says, please do a full stream of 2018 features in detail. Yeah, I meant to do that 2 weeks ago, and I was going to do it last weekend, and this weekend it still looks like it's not going to happen. I have to have a full weekend to sit down and do stuff, and I haven't had that weekend yet. Cool. So again, I'm a little bit behind on the comments here, but just making sure there's nothing technically going wrong. So I got this thing here, and it's a complex shape, and now we want to use ZeroMesher on this. So what I'm going to do is, with all this stuff visible, I'm going to go down here to Boolean, Dynamic Subdivisions, Make Boolean Mesh, and then I'll go ahead and give me my mesh here. So it's all, there's my UMesh, and here it is. And you can still, because you have all of these edge loop information available to you, you can still go through here in QMesh, Polygroup Island, and still make modifications. It'll be a little bit slower because it is a heavier mesh, but we can go ahead and add at least a little bit of detail to this. So now we want to ZeroMesh this thing. Luckily, Live Boolean keeps all of these polygroups for us, and this isn't terrible because your original geometry was pretty clean. This isn't a terrible start, but if you started with mostly a Dynamesh or it was really a complex curvy object or something like that, it may behoove you, or if you didn't have polygroups. Ideally, what you have is a bunch of polygroups. If you don't have any polygroups, you bring in data from a CAD program or something like that, you can go to Group by Normals, and that's under your polygroup menu, and that'll look through and polygroup it for you. It missed this polygroup here, and everywhere you have a polygroup, it's going to put in a control line when we go to ZeroMesh. So you want, let's see if we drop that max angle down just a bit. There we go. So that picked up a few more polygroups. You don't want to drop it down so low that it's picking up too much information, like right here. So let's, and we can fix that. There we go. If it did pick up too much, what you could do is you could isolate any two, hold on, Control Shift, select rectangle. You can isolate any two of these things and hit Control W and merge them together. In this case, we don't want to do that, but if you couldn't dial in that number perfectly enough, you might have to do a little polygroup cleanup. But now that we have all those polygroups in there to dictate how these things are going to go, and we can go ahead and turn on X symmetry because this is asymmetrical mesh. If it's not, obviously you don't want to have X symmetry turned on. That's tapping X to transform, activate symmetry. So then if we do a ZeroMesher, let's go down here to this one. This has a few more options that I don't have in my custom menu here. Custom menus are going to be on my channel under Intro to ZBrush Part 2. That'll take you through, and it hasn't changed in 2018, so still relevant. I got a lot of recording left to do to update a bunch of videos on my website. We'll see if that ever happens. So else, and we can turn off now. So let's go back to ZeroMesher. And adaptive size we may have to play with, as well as the target polygon count, because if we go half, we want to do keep groups. If this is going to automatically smooth your groups out, so we'll keep this on for now, but if I ZeroMesh this thing with keep groups smoothed on, you're going to see how it kind of smooths out the result. And it also sometimes will lose polygroup information. Let's go ahead and do a mirror and weld. Oh, you know what? It doesn't have that polygroup information on this side, but it does on this side. All I'm going to do is do a quick deformation mirror and then mirror and weld. Not sure why that angle picked up and this one didn't, but and you can also manually just go through here and you could say, hey, you know what, this one didn't pick up, polygroup, polyloop, tap Alt, and then you can just go through here and manually, and then you can do, actually, here's what I would do in this situation. I would say, grab these two, wait, let's do Alt so it's more obvious. There we go. Grab these two, isolate them, Control Shift X to expand, X to expand again. I guess that'll work. So then we can get rid of this one and get rid of this one and get rid of this one. So now we have all this information, hit Control W, and that'll make that one polygroup. So that's under visibility, grow, shrink. Control Shift S is shrink, Control Shift X is expand or grow. I use expand so I remember. And now that I have that information, again, we go down here, geometry zero mesh. We did zero mesh half on this one. We have our polygroups in place, and it does a fairly good job. You're getting a little bit of bleeding over here because remember, it's having to do an awful lot of figuring out how to get this shape to flow into this shape. Oh, also adaptive size. You're going to see it starts building in denser curves through here. And that's because we have adaptive size turned to 50. If we turn that down to 0, that'll give you more even quads, but it may break a little bit easier because keeping even quads on a complex shape may or may not work. So half isn't cutting it for us. Right now we're sitting at 12,000 active points. So if we say target polygon count of like 8K, and also the smooth groups is smoothing these groups out. So you're going to see if you don't want that, you can turn smooth groups down to 0. That slider becomes available when you say keep groups on. And again, it's just using your polygroups here to dictate your polygon flow. We seem to be having a bunch of trouble up here, but everything else seems to be working really, really well. And if you wanted to, you could try even under edge loop. You can try doing this delete loops to kind of clean this up a little bit quicker than manually going here and deleting a bunch of loops. So use that to your advantage. And in here, you may have to just do a little bit of manual cleanup work. Again, it's just getting a little bit squirrely around these sections here. I mean, it's still pretty clean, but again, trying to transition all of this complex form in between these two, it seems to be hiccuping. You can bump up your resolution a bit to see if it takes care of it, but that's just something you're going to have to just dial in and play with. And you may eventually just end up having to go in and manually kind of clean that up. Smooth groups down to 0, keep groups, half, adaptive size 0, or maybe playing with your adaptive size as well to give it a little bit more edge information to put around this complex shape here may help it. I don't know. And then again, going back down here to delete loops, and that'll go ahead and clean up any extraneous loops that you don't need. Now, sometimes it does get rid of loops that you do need, so watch when you do that you don't break something. And then for the cleanup work, that could just be manually, oh boy. It seems to be doing these cylinders pretty well, although there's a spiral in there. So just playing with the settings and kind of dialing in, and it's not going to be the same for every complex shape. I don't know that you'll be able to do like a perfect setting for every complex Boolean shape you do. It's just going to be a lot of playing to get that to work for you. If you do have shapes like, you know what, let's go back to this version here. Let's say we have a shape like, let's just do a cylinder. Where did that go? I'm going to put a cylinder in here just to kind of cap this in the middle. There we go, and I'm going to scale this up. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to kind of block both sides just to kind of give it an interior. And you know what? We'll do another Boolean. So I'll go ahead and split this off. So if we have these two visible, I don't have dynamic subdivision turned on, so I can just take these and then just do a Boolean, make Boolean mesh. We'll make another union mesh here. There we go. We can turn line Boolean off. So now that we have this interior space here and we want to zero mesh this, we'll just use some OK settings here. So we can go zero mesher, crank this up, adaptive size down, and then keep groups, smooth groups off. And we have X. Ooh, I think I forgot to turn X on. Unless it doesn't keep symmetry. Yeah, let's turn X symmetry on. Hopefully it doesn't explode. There we go. So in this case, if you wanted to simplify these things, of course, you can still go down here and do your whole delete loops thing. That'll get rid of some extraneous loops, but you can always just get rid of these completely, delete hidden, and then you can go through here and say close convex hole, and then just cap. Boy, I did some nasty stuff in there. I might not have had that positioned very well. It looks like I left a weird open hole in there. But you get the idea, where any circular stuff you can go through and recap with new geometry. Hope that makes sense. I have a question: how to create brush set for ZBrush and behave like standard brush. I should just be using the standard brush. I'm not sure I follow on that one. What do you think Sculptris Pro would be used for in production? For me, I mean, there's a lot of interesting ways you can use it for kind of you can decimate your objects down, and then you can use it as a way to fine-tune where your topology goes on a decimated mesh. It's kind of, so in that way it'd be like an optimization tool. You can also use it just in concepting. It's kind of like Dynamesh, only a little bit more, it behaves a little bit differently, so it doesn't stick together to other meshes, which is very useful if you're doing like fat folds or cloth. It's super useful. For example, let's say we go to our zombie here, and we're going to I'm going to duplicate this one, Control Shift A, split hidden, go into solo mode here, and then let's say we want to give this guy a t-shirt here. So we're going to go ahead and grab this geo here, just Control Shift, and then delete hidden, and then Control W, make it all one polygroup. And you know what? We have X turned on. Let's go ahead and do a zero mesh half, data size down to 0, and we'll get some new geometry just to kind of simplify this. We'll do a quick Q mesh, polygroup all. I'm usually hesitant just to give thickness to shirts because I don't like dealing with interior faces. I'm more inclined to just go through here and cap these here. It may not work that great for this neck. We may have to do some fancy footwork. Maybe not. So I'm just going to cap these. There. No weird faces in here. I'm going to do a crease PG, and now when we start subdividing here, we're going to get keep those edges creased, and then we'll do, okay, let's just do this. Standard brush here, and I'm going to go in here and say change my lazy radius under your stroke menu, turn off X because cloth is rarely symmetrical, and we can go through here and start sculpting some cloth on here. And if I want to start doing just concept-y stuff, we can subdivide this stuff up, and it'll just refine as we go. And I do prefer having subdivision levels when I do cloth, so I can always step down and just go through here and work with the major forms first. And obviously I'm going to probably use Marvelous Designer for my primary and secondary forms, but in a pinch, if you just want to quickly concept something out, you can go through here. And if you were using Dynamesh on this, so we can go in through here and we say, okay, let's just Dynamesh this thing. Okay, it's like, okay, we can Dynamesh, but let's say you wanted to put like a big fold on here, or even like we'll do this in a second, like a fat fold or something, so you can like go through here and mask, and you can use gravity on your brush. So in case you didn't know that, on these brushes here, if you go into your standard brush and you go into, oh boy, do I even remember where this is? You see, I don't use this a whole lot. Where's gravity at, guys? Samples. Constant samples. Is that under stroke? All right, let's do a little research here. Depth. There it is. Gravity strength's at 0. So we crank this up. So it's gravity strength at 0. Standard brush just behaves as normal. If you crank that up, it's going to start pulling all the way up. It'll just pull straight down. So you're going to see as I stroke, it just pulls down here. So you can play with this gravity strength in here. So if you have the gravity strength up and we pull it on this one, it's going to pull this down. So if you're using gravity or making fat folds or cloth, you can go through here and kind of pull these things over each other. However, if you're using Dynamesh, it's going to want to stick these surfaces together. So if I go through here and inflate and then Dynamesh, you're going to see it sticks them together. Not great if you're trying to show something fold in on top of itself, like again, fat folds. If you're making a big fat piggy with arms that bend and stuff that's rolling in the mud, you know, you're going to want to make sure those creases and folds stay there. And if you're concepting and using Dynamesh, it's not going to hold that fold. Hold that fold. So what I would do instead would be, make this Dynamesh, yeah. So I'd go ahead and turn on Sculptures mode here. And then that's just up here, that's the backslash button, Sculptures Pro, sorry. And now if I pull this out, you're going to see, as long as I'm going to turn Dynamesh off, I can go through here and mask, invert this mask, move this thing around. I can even have it come in contact with itself again. And then you're going to see, as I go through here and modify this, this is still always going to be separate. Let me pull that out further so it's a little more obvious here. So now I can always go through here and I'm always going to have a separate mesh along in here. If I make my smooth brush really small, I can just smooth that back up to where it connects if I want to clean that up. But at least I have a separate surface that's going to give me a nice clean division line here. And so the other cool thing about that is if I wanted to zero mesh this thing, let's hold down Control Shift, isolate just this top polygroup here. And we go to delete hidden. And do I even have my macro installed? Polish. Polygroup border, I don't. Give me a sec. And I'll share this with you guys too. I'm going to go down, I'm going to do a search for polish. Okay, polish polygroup border. I'm going to share, get shareable link, copy link. So here you go. If you want to download this macro along with me, I'm going to download this. So here I'm going to take this zip file. I'm going to say 7-zip, extract it to just a folder on my desktop. And let me see if I can find that for you. Move this chat over. There it is. So this is what I'm looking at. If I double click in here, you're going to see there's a text file and a Z script. Select both those, hit Control X, and then go into your ZBrush program files, Pixelogic ZBrush 2018, Z startup, Z plugs, no, macros, miscellaneous, and we'll just paste that right in there. And now, if we go back into ZBrush, whoops. ZBrush lost my, give me a second. Lost my window size for a second. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and get a little more real estate. Still look good on OBS, see all the menus? Yeah. Okay, so we have that. If we go back to the macros here, and we say reload all macros, you can see polish polygroup border. That'll go ahead and mask the polygroups and make those straighter. So the reason I'm doing that is so ZBrush sees this and doesn't try to build in those little alias lines. And you can run that as many times as you want. If you want to do it again, there you go. So when we ZBrush this, just like if you brought in a Marvelous Designer mesh, it's going to ZBrush and give you that fold. So if we want to have X turned off, obviously. So we're going to ZBrush this half, depth size down to 0. I'll crank that up a little bit. So we get edges built in where it needs to. And then when we ZBrush this object, same thing if you're doing, like, again, a pig rolling in mud that has a lot of fat rolls, you're going to want to build in and ZBrush those folds. Something that if you're concepting with just Dynamesh would be impossible to get. Because again, give this a second here. There we go. So when you look at the Zbrush and you hit W and then control drag along here, you're going to see we still have that geometry separate. So it Zbrush that in. So if you needed to animate that or anything like that, it would always be separate, and it gives you a much more accurate representation. If we go in here to brush and we say auto masking, turn on topological, range is 1, we can go through here and we can even move this separately here. Now, if this was just a Dynamesh concept mesh, and we say, okay, we're just Dynameshing and we're concepting, we'll pull that out, and if you ever want to sculpt detail on this, you'd have to Dynamesh, because if we go ahead and turn Dynamesh on, and as we're pulling this out, obviously, like so, you're going to say, oh, I want to sculpt detail on this. I'm going to Dynamesh again, and let's do this. Also, I want to make this the same thickness as previously, so I'm going to do inflate. I'm going to turn sculptors mode off temporarily. So I'm going to go ahead and inflate this up. It's like, okay, I want this to lay on the same surface as this one, but man, I lost all my detail when I'm using Dynamesh on here. So I'm going to control drag again. It's like, oh great, now I can sculpt in detail on here as needed with my standard brush, etc., etc. And then if you go to Zbrush this, it's just going to Zbrush an envelope. And that's not to say Dynamesh isn't useful. I want to make envelopes of meshes all the time, but there are some instances where I don't want to make an envelope, and that's where Sculptris Pro Plus, whatever that's called, Sculptris Pro mode comes into play. And again, like I said before, I'll do a full stream on the new 2018 features when I get a whole weekend to myself. D. Van Gore says, I want to build a ballpoint pen in Rhino. I hate NURBS. Would you go so far to say you can build anything in ZBrush as precise as NURBS program? By the way, I love your ZBrush tutorials. Thank you. Glad they're helping out. Depends on how precise we're talking. If you're talking like, I need to machine this object with tolerances so that I can use it as safety equipment in my Volvo, I would say don't use ZBrush. In fact, hopefully you're working somewhere that can machine things to tolerances, especially when human safety is involved, or anything that needs to be ultra precise. You're going to need measurements. You can go in here to Z plugin Scale Master, and you can scale objects to the correct scale using Scale Master here. You can even bring in CAD objects through, if it's an FBX or an OBJ, you can import that obviously, but also the 3D Print Hub, you can bring in STL files. So, and even in here, it has size ratios and size options in here to make sure that it's the correct size when you bring it into ZBrush. But yeah, if you want the ultimate level of millimeter, decimal point millimeter sizes, it's only going to, ZBrush is only going to be as precise as the information you bring in, I think. You're not going to be able to put in an inset that is exactly 0.01 milli, or maybe there is a way to measure that using like using transpose lines. If we hit Y, you can set your transpose units up like we did last stream. But again, this is just kind of eyeballing. You're going to move this around to kind of eyeball that distance, and it's not going to be exactly what you want. However, if you're just making a ballpoint pen for like your portfolio, then absolutely, just use ZBrush. It'll, or you can also use you can use ZBrush in conjunction with CAD programs. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom here, you're going to see a Fusion 360 quick start. Copy link address. So if you go here, you're going to see that I go through there and I also show like going from ZBrush to a CAD program and using that as kind of a 3D concept to block your surface out in a CAD program and then bring it back into ZBrush. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds if you want. Cool. Hey, thanks for showing up, everybody. And again, I'm probably really behind on my chat here. I guess, you know what, we can all look at the chat as I'm going through. So, Compressor says, I just bought a tablet, but I'm not comfortable with the size based on pressure. Did you use any standard config for any brush? No, I'm just using standard settings. You're right. Yeah, when I go into ZBrush, I don't change any of that stuff. If you do want to, FYI for anybody else, under your preferences, I think it's under brushes and preferences. We'll go into brush here first. You can go into your tablet pressure, and here's global settings in here, but you can also, for every brush, it's going to have a different setting. So if I go for my clay brush here, it has global settings turned on. Standard brush, I don't. It has brushes just for that. Clay tubes has its own. So you can see certain brushes use the global settings, which I think the global settings are going to be in preferences. Tablet, use tablet, and then there's the sensitivity for that. So I think global settings points here, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. So Ian says here, the Houdini game workflow, if you guys missed that, that'll be a newer one. So we'll go to our thing here. Here's the Houdini game dev tool set. And I'm going to go ahead and copy link address, and you guys can check that out here. So this is just a short series on going through and taking a high-res object from ZBrush into Houdini and then making a game res with UVs and exporting that into Substance Painter and all that good stuff. Way to use retopologizing, unwrap, bake.hip is a batch loader. That one I'm going to have to look into. I had to drop Houdini soon after I did this, but I want to get back into it shortly. I had some other stuff I had to do, but yeah, there should be. Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure off the top of my head how to do that though, unfortunately. Yeah, there should be a way, yeah, to have a file that you can point and just have it run a batch operation on. I'll have to look that up though. Cool. Can I do live Boolean in ZBrush R7 or are there other ways? Oh boy, I think 4R8 is when the live Boolean stuff came in. So no way to do an R7 unless you want to do like Dynamesh your object and use Dynamesh Booleans. Yeah, and you can use ZRemesh. I forgot to mention that too. Well, I think I mentioned it, but I didn't actually show it. So let's scoot this over. So you can use ZRemesh in conjunction with, let's go back to the one that was the original UMesh here. Let's go ahead and delete this one. So we have this union mesh here, and we have X turned on, and we want to zero mesh this, keep groups, etc., etc. And there's a little bit of cleanup work you want to do. Now this is going to work on, there's going to be a limit to how much information you can bring into a Z-sphere, but you can go in here and you can do, again, our geometry, delete loops, edge loop, delete loops, just to kind of clean this up. And you can manually go through here, and if it didn't catch all of them, you can insert single edge loop and hold down Alt and just kind of kill these. You want to get rid of as much information as you can, or anything that's not supporting the overall shape you want to get rid of. Probably even through here, if you really wanted to, you can go through here and get rid of these things that aren't, it's giving you nice even quads, but these things aren't really helping change the shape, or you can delete every other one if you have a slight curve in there, but it's, so kind of pick and choose how you want to refine this. And again, this isn't optimal. It's not going to be like, oh, here's the perfect solution for game ready art on hard surface objects, because it's going to be some cleanup work. And if it's not going to animate, really consider if it needs to be, if it can just be decimated. Anyway, we have this object here. So if we want to do a little bit of cleanup work, we have our original here. So what we can do is we can go, or we probably want a clean version of this union mesh here. So let's go ahead and delete that one. This one here is our kind of our dirty version. I'm going to go ahead and do another, turn on live Boolean, go out of solo mode, not polyframe. I'm going to do a quick, another union mesh here. So here is our ZRemesh version. I'm going to append our new UMesh here. So here's our clean version here. So here we have selected our dirty version we want to clean up. I'm going to go ahead and go insert Z-sphere, And actually on this dirty one, I'm going to go ahead and say clone, so it spits it out here, and I'm going to delete this out of the stack. So with the Z-sphere selected and our clean version, I'm going to hit X for X symmetry, E, I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to put it, I can try and hide it inside the object here. You can hit W and just kind of move this thing out of the way, or you can hide it inside the object if you can. And then now that that Z-sphere is there, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here. We're going to go to Topology, select Topology. We're going to grab that dirty version, which I'm going to have to rename because I don't know which one it is. So here's my clone dirty version. Let's rename this to Clean Me Up, Scotty. So we're going to take the Z-sphere here, and again, we're going to go to Topology, select Topology, select Clean Me Up, and now we have that topology available to us. So if we go into Edit Topology here, I'm going to go into, oh, you know what? I don't have a material I use all the time. I'm going to go in here, and we're going to choose Matcap Pearl, dark gray. And when I bring in topology, what I like to do is hold down Control. Let's give me that weirdo snap to undo, undo, undo. Come on, Zbrush, behave. Let's go out of Edit Topology mode. Okay, so you can see that when I brought it in, there was pieces that were masked and pieces that weren't showing. So I go ahead and unmask and show all that. Then we go into Edit Topology mode. And then turn light Boolean off. And now I can go through here. W, that's what I want to click. So here, you can just go through and select. Boy, it's doing that weird line thing that just wants to not cooperate here, where it goes out into infinity. Give me a second, see if I can fix this here. You know what, let's turn off. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see, W. W move. Yeah, it keeps snapping me. I got in a weird state. So anyway, you should be able to bring your topology back in and then go through and manually clean up any weird areas that you have. We did that, now that I think about it, in the live stream highlights. We did that with the anteater here, the one I remember. So Dynamesh Z-sphere topology cleanup. So if I copy this link address to you guys here. Yada, yada, yada. Anything interesting in here you want to play with? Maybe not. How are we doing on time? Okay, we got about 15 minutes. Cool. Yeah, Roman, you can ask me. I don't have too much time, so we'll see if I can get to all the questions today. Height information in Zbrush. Yes. So, for example, well, you can bake height information as a displacement. So if we have a Z-sphere, go into Make Polymesh 3D, and we go through here with geometry, and we subdivide, and then I go through here. Let's take our standard brush, and we'll clone that off, and we'll do drag dot, put in an alpha, focal shift down to -100, and turn off lazy radius, and crank up Z intensity. So I can go through here, and I can just stamp these shapes out. If I go down here, if this has UVs, which I think it does, yeah, it has UVs. So under displacement map, you can, let's go ahead and just displacement map, create displacement map, high subdivision level. So we're going to go down to subdivision level 1, create displacement map. This will be you can create a height map for what information you have on here. With displacement, or if you're just talking about like a flat plane or anything in your scene here, so we can go like hit W, BI, brush insert. These are going to be faceted. Brush insert. Anything interesting in here? Yeah, spaceships. We can choose any of these here. Let's hit, if we hit W, oh, let's hit delete higher. There we go. So we can go through here and say, oh, you know what's a good one? Brush insert Boolean. So let's say we wanted a height map of this. So we could take this and put this here. And then if we go, we're in draw mode. So we can move this around. If we do Shift S, we can save screenshots of this, but it's still storing that height information. So we can turn this to the side. And this will still be height information that we can capture. So if we want to capture that, we can go switch to Simple Brush, and then we can do the mRGB Z grabber. And then if we just drag over this, you can use spacebar to reposition, hold down Shift to make it square, and then you can just grab this alpha that it'll capture. Now that we have that alpha selected, we can go back to our sphere that we were using. Make Polymesh 3D, divide. Go back to our standard brush here, and then that alpha that we made, we can use that to drag dot. So focus it down to like 100. So you have that height information you can capture. Of course, you can also make your document size 1024 by 1024 and frame the object and all that stuff and make it tiling. But we've done that before. Can we use these macros on ZBrush Core? That's a good question. I don't know. Yarav says, do you think it's hard for aspiring artists to build skills, build portfolios, try to get a job at the same time? Do you think it's better to do them chronologically? Sure, ideally, yeah, when you go to the job market, it's a job market that's going to be hungry for what you have to offer. But yeah, that's not, yes, ideally, sure, absolutely. But in realistically, being able to build your skills, make a great portfolio tailored to the studio you want to work for, or studios you want to work for, that can kind of be tricky for somebody who doesn't have unlimited resources and time. So, getting a job and paying your student loans off and stuff like that. So you kind of just take what you can get. I certainly did. Cool. Do I speak Russian? I speak English okay, and that's about it. I took 4 years of German, and I remember maybe the first 2 weeks of that in high school. What do you recommend to improve organic sculpting? I think that's observational. Just go through and outside of like making custom brushes for very specific edge cases for sculpting specific things like clothing, yeah, I would say just have reference of something. Even if you go through and you take a bunch of different photos of something you want to sculpt, like a person or an animal, and then just go in here and just use that reference to sculpt it up. And the more you do that, or even organic stuff like pants, take a pair of jeans, put them on, take pictures in the round, and then bring those in as reference, and then just sculpt the hell out of some jeans, and you'll get pretty good at just observational organic sculpting. Now, outside of that, if you want to do like creative organic sculpting, then that's when you have to go and study anatomy and design and making or stylized characters and making things appealing and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more work, but to start out, just copy and use observation for that. Decimated clean mesh is acceptable for static objects in game dev. I mean, it only takes a few seconds to get that in game, so you can test it with perf, and if it holds up, and if it does, then you've already answered that question. If it's not good enough, then you can decide, okay, that's not good enough. We have to manually do that or clean that up in some way. If you don't have to, then you don't. But at least that's an option for you to decimate first. So way to render is crisp and nice in ZBrushes and Keyshot. Yeah, no. Well, they're two very different renderers. You can do a lot of, I think in the Intro to ZBrush Part 3 on Gumroad, we go through some rendering options using HDRI and or image-based lighting. It's kind of like Keyshot, but as far as like water and glass and global illumination, you can, I mean, I would say the ZBrush render is more forgiving. You can you can get away with a little bit more, whereas Keyshot, it's a product renderer, so if you have any sloppiness or any softness where it shouldn't be, it'll probably call you out in your render, so you might have to do a little bit more cleanup with the Keyshot renders. Hey, Andy, thanks for showing up. Again, I'm kind of behind on these. Thoughts on project primitive deformers? It's great for kind of getting a quick organic concept out. I don't use it a whole lot at the moment, but that's just because the projects and the type of work that I'm doing don't really call for it. But it's good. If you go back to I do a little bit of it. Go to videos here on, if we'll go to videos, whenever I stream, my internet gets slow, obviously. And YouTube lately has been giving me a lot of errors. There we go. This Earthworm Jim speed sculpt, I use a little bit of project primitive so you can kind of see that in action, where I'm using project primitive to kind of block out the base shapes and block in the muscles, projecting the muscles. Or you can also use it as an insert mesh brush with those primitives too, just by setting it to, for example, let's delete higher. Let's say W here. Whoops, project primitive. So, of course, we're projecting that default primitive here, which is just a sphere. We can scale this up as needed, and you can kind of just project these things as you want. But if you want to go through here and do the whole, here's a primitive type, we'll change that to like 3, and we'll taper this in, and we'll keep that spherical. So you can go through here, and you can start dialing this in here, and we can get, okay, I want to accept this, and then I'm going to pull this one out. Let's go ahead and set this to new surface temporarily, just so I can see what I'm doing here. So on this one, I'm going to hold down shift, and we'll put that back to a cylinder. I'm going to scale this down, and now I'm going to turn new surface off. So when I push this in, we're getting that result. So if it's a little bit soft, go over here to the tessellate settings and just dial that up to kind of make that a little bit sharper, and then we can hit accept, and then we can go, you know what, I'm fine, so we'll go out of W. So now we have a nice organic weirdo shape that may have been a little bit more difficult to accomplish using traditional methods, and you can just very quickly do it using project primitive. Yeah, I think John uses the manual retope, that bug where it was shooting that line out. I think that is a bug. Happens every once in a while. Yeah, and then I go in and clean it up with retopology. Yeah, I think there was an Ask Zbrush about that, but I don't know. You're right that the Z-sphere line was resolved. I still have to catch up on Joseph Druss and Paul Gabry's stuff. It's my brain is just. Learning ZBrush. How can I improve my ZBrush? I'm just doing it. So Hasnate asks, I'm learning ZBrush. How can I improve it? Just like I improve with anything, it's just doing it over and over and over again, and using what you know and your problem-solving skills with what you've learned in any program. And this goes for any program to tackle any projects that you're working on. So choosing projects that are not insanely difficult at first, but something where you can go through and you can use your problem-solving skills in a certain program to solve some problems, and then it's like, oh, how do I make this particular shape? And you Google it or go on YouTube or you look through the user documents and see if there's not ways to overcome those. And as you continue to do that, you'll get better and better in the program. Yeah, exactly. Alto says you're talking really fast. That's usually me just trying to get through all the all the questions. What you can do though is when you go through, once this is on my YouTube channel, go through and let's find another better example. Here's live stream. So we got this live stream here. Hope this doesn't make a liar out of me. Go to settings, speed, and just from normal, put me on like 0.75. It won't make me sound like Andre the Giant, but it'll slow me down enough to where I'm a little bit more comfortable listening to. Even 0.5 might be a little bit more, whatever that speed. There should be subtitles here too. Of course, they're going to be of not necessarily great quality, but use that to kind of dial my speed up and down. So for live streams, I just talk the way I talk, but at least when it goes on YouTube, you should be able to control the speed of my voice. Professional advice for 3 years getting in the industry. I do. That was from Hannah. I'm putting together a frequently asked questions that will go over that. You know what? I should finish that out this morning. I'm going to post that to my ArtStation page here. So I do have and it's a lot of information here. So it's going to cover all of that stuff, and I'll put that up on like ArtStation blog or something, and I'll link you to it once that's done. Drawing skills important for sculpting. Do you have any 2D sketching as exercise? Oh, I would. Yeah. So I don't necessarily, not necessarily for my job or for a developer job whose job is for vert massaging or UV layout, but or yeah, you know what? There's a lot of character artists I know who are professional who can't draw for shit. So is drawing important? Or they don't draw they're not excellent 2D artists. They're not amazing 2D artists. They're okay 2D artists is what I should say. So is it important to get a job? No. What's important to get a job is to have a nice 3D portfolio because that's relevant to the work you're going to be doing. However, of course, drawing is, at the very least, drawing is fun. So I like to be a good drawer. So I'm always trying to improve that. And you can absolutely use 3D skills to make you a better 2D artist, and vice versa. You can use your 2D skills to be a better, at the very least, designer in 3D. So that's kind of where I'm headed, and keep your eyes peeled for more stuff on that. Is rendering improved on 2018? Not that I know of. I don't remember if they had a whole lot of updates on that. Hannah says, sorry, it's a basic question. Graduating student, pending job hunt is intimidating. Well, hopefully you don't have to compete with people of my skill level, like you say. Hopefully there are entry-level positions, although in a lot of studios, even mine included, entry-level positions are hard to come by. So, although we're always trying to change that, getting new, fresh talent is important, I think, to maintaining relevancy and stuff. But you're right, it is a super competitive job market. I agree. I don't envy you guys. I graduated in 2005 from Ringling, and that was at the boom of next gen, which was the Xbox 360 at the time, and the PS3. That hadn't quite come out yet. So yeah, then the tools have gotten so good that it's a tough market. And I was hoping by now VR would have added more jobs to the market, but unfortunately it looks like that's not the case. But maybe AR will come in, and then VR will come in behind it, and we'll see if we can't get more on that. Yeah, and I just watched the Andre the Giant HBO documentary, which is why that popped in my head probably. Cool. Oh, greetings from Germany. I might be heading back there sometime soon. I went there not too long ago. Chandra says, you said earlier to learn anatomy and design stuff improves style and create characters. What kind of design stuff that is essential to learn for 3D industry? Design may not be essential for you at all especially if you're first starting out. I like to hire people that can design just because that makes them a little bit more marketable if there's a concept bottleneck, or even just taking a concept and improving on it or filling in the blanks where concept doesn't quite pick up all the information. Being able to do that intelligently is a good way to start building your design skills. But as far as like getting somebody new, I wouldn't be so concerned about you being able to design stuff. I'd be concerned about you being able to interpret a concept into 3D. So not a ton of you'll have to think outside the box a little bit to fill in the blanks, but nothing you shouldn't be able to overcome. As far as building those skills, I'm still doing that. So like I said before, keep your eyes peeled for that. In the future, we'll have a few more 2D to 3D and 3D to 2D type stuff that we can talk about that I think will be really fun. Alrighty, everybody. I'm gonna head out. I know this is a short one, but thanks for showing up. Hopefully that was some good stuff, and I'll see you guys this coming up Tuesday, I believe. I'll be back on Pixelogic's channel. So in case you didn't know that, of course I've linked you to my YouTube channel. If you go to the Pavlovich workshop, here is my Pixelogic channel. I'll probably start recording those and just throwing them up on my YouTube channel just because I don't know how much cross-pollination there is, and it's easier for me to, if I do get any questions, like this one I had on my latest video here, can you please show your insert multi-mesh base primitive brush? I can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and, while we're all sitting here, I'm going to throw that up on my Google Drive here. Yes, let's do that. So I'm going to go to my PC here, and we're going to Zbrush 2018, Z Startup, brush presets. You're going to see I have an insert multi-mesh base primitives, and that is essentially, if we hit B, let's just do Alt E goes to my base primitives here, and if I hit M, you can see those ones. So I'm just going to copy those onto the internet. So we're just going to drag this right here, and I'll link you guys before I head out. There we go. Insert multi-mesh base primitives. If you guys want this, share, get shareable link, copy link done. Here you go. All yours, and I'll go ahead and reply. Here. So of course, if you want to load those up, if you want them to show up every time, I'll walk you through this again. If you want that insert multi-mesh brush to show up every time, so you can assign it to a hotkey like I do. So brush, insert, base primitive here, it's assigned to Alt E is my hotkey for mine. If you want it to show up every time we open up ZBrush, just copy that into, again, ZBrush, Program Files, Pixologic, ZBrush 2018, Z Startup, brush presets, copy it in here, it'll load up with ZBrush every time. If you only want to use it occasionally, go to ZBrush 2018, ZBrushes, put it in a folder somewhere like IMM. You can just paste it in here, and then when you hit the comma key, you can go and track it down under the brush tab. So either way, all yours. Cool. All right, everybody. I will see you on Tuesday and then next Thursday, I hope.